Welcome to Green Light for Justice, saving the world one case at a time.
Hello and welcome to Green Light for Justice, saving the world one case at a time with experienced attorney Michael S. Greene. Now, for over 30 years, Michael has aggressively represented clients in cases involving serious accidents, personal injury, medical and nursing home malpractice, wrongful death, and premise liability claims. I'm Evan Mack, and in this episode, Michael will talk about the most common birth injuries, how they are handled legally in Maryland, and what options families have if their child is hurt during delivery. This is Maryland Birth Injury Cases Explained, Causes, Medical Negligence, and Compensation. Michael, sir, how are you?
I'm well, Evan. How about you?
I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there. But can you legally talk about what is a birth injury, legally speaking?
Sure. This is a it's a shame that we have to talk about this topic. It's an important topic. It's a life-changing topic, but it's a reality. So it's important for people to be informed, to know what a birth injury is, and then we'll, of course, talk about the process, about what what families can do if they do encounter a birth injury in their lives. A birth injury, it's almost, I want to say it's common sense when you ask the average person, what is a birth injury? It's an injury that occurs during the birthing process. That could be an injury to the baby, to the newborn baby. It could be an injury to the mother. And in the context in which we're talking about a birth injury, in the legal context, a birth injury you'll probably want to know this, and you can ask me about this down the road, but a birth injury can occur either through the fault of a doctor or a healthcare provider or not. But once again, birth injury is an injury during birth that it happens either to the baby or to the mother. And of course, consequences can be severe.
So what are some common birth injuries you see in Maryland?
Well, the most common ones that we see involve injury to the baby, to the newborn. I mean, these little several ounce baby humans, little babies, during the birthing process, they can be injured. And some of the common injuries that you may hear about or that we see are cerebral palsy, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, brain damage, brain bleeds, premature birth. There could be stillbirth, meaning the baby's born not living, not viable. So to really break it down in simple terms, the injuries can be, they're physical injuries, but they can result in severe brain damage. The brain is a physical organ, but the brain controls us. I mean, we're humans, and our brains control everything on us. So there's basically when we think about it, it could be the main injuries. If you break it down, all the technical terms, it's usually either going to be a brain damage to the child, which is just incredibly challenging to deal with, or other physical damage. There could be damage to the limbs, to the arms, the legs. Like during the birthing process, things can happen. We can talk about that.
So are these injuries, in your kind of opinion, maybe are they preventable? Is there a specific cause?
The answer to that is yes, no, and maybe. So each case is different. There are situations. Medical negligence or medical malpractice is just another way of saying medical negligence is a doctor medical malpractice is the same as saying medical negligence. Negligence means that a person, in this case, a doctor or healthcare provider, has a duty, and the doctor breaches that duty and does something wrong, does not act within the standard of care. So there are situations where that birth injuries are caused by medical malpractice, medical negligence, basically the fault of one or more healthcare providers. There are situations that may not be preventable, where things happen. We're not the most powerful. We may be the humans may be the most powerful creatures on earth, but we're not the man upstairs. So there are things that happen while the baby is still in the mom's belly that are not preventable. That they can happen. They can happen from genetics or the way the physiology of the mother's body and the baby's body. So there are situations where things happen and it's nobody's fault, no doctor's fault. But the cases that we look at, and when people come to us, we look at everything. We look at all the medical records. We'll get to that too, and determine whether somebody was at fault.
So like I always feel like it's hard to kind of prove this malpractice. How is it so how does one prove malpractice when it comes to these kind of cases?
Sure, it involves a lot of investigation. So what would happen is the mom or dad or family would come to me to my law firm, and we would talk to them and get to know them, find out what happened during the birthing process, what they know. So what we're doing is we're gathering evidence because we have the burden of proving whether there was malpractice. Just because there's a bad outcome does not automatically mean that there's malpractice. So we gather evidence. We're looking for the truth. What happened? We look at many medical records during for the prenatal care and the actual birthing process. We look at information that tells us whether there were any delays in delivering the baby, because sometimes the birth injuries, whether that be the brain damage or the brain damage or any other physical injuries, let's say to the shoulders or any other parts of the body, it occurs during birth, and we want to look at timing. So we look at a lot of medical records. We have experts look at the medical records for us and determine, what if any negligence caused this injury. Was there a delay in delivery? Was there a need for an emergent delivery, an emergent cesarean section known as a C-section? Was there a delay in doing that? Did that delay cause a lack of oxygen to the baby's brain, and that then caused brain damage? So we look at that. We look at the actual physical delivery. Was the baby deprived of oxygen during the delivery for too long? How did the doctor deliver the child? What position was the child in? Was there too much pulling on the baby that resulted in dislocations or damage to the nerves and the body and the baby's body? So it's a lot of investigation. Like I said, looking at medical records and also consulting with expert witnesses. Our expert witnesses we hire at no cost to the families. We take care of all of that. We'll hire expert medical doctors to review the cases. And in Maryland, we're actually required to have medical experts to prove our case. You can't just go in and say, oh, there's a bad result, I have a case. No, we have to prove it. And expert medical testimony is required in these malpractice cases.
Hmm. So how do medical experts like OBs, pediatricians, neurologists, how do they help build a case?
Sure. So, like I said, the family comes to us. We obtain all the medical records, whatever records we need to review the case. We reach out to medical experts, whether that be um, gynecologists, obstetricians, neonatologists, nurses, uh, and like I said, because their expert testimony is required to prove a case. Well, that's one of the reasons that we um, hire them to review the cases. And the other reason is, well, we want to know the truth. So we're having this independent person come in. We provide them with the evidence that we have, which could include medical records, fetal monitoring strips, um, you name it, the birth records, the neonatal records. And we ask these professionals, these medical experts, to review these records
Hmm.
and to give us provide us, they don't give anything, but they'll provide us with their expert medical opinions. They'll say, oh, well, this is what the standard of care is. This is what the doctors should have done. This is what the doctors did, and this is why that is a breach of the standard of care, which is negligence. So the first part of any civil case, or that if we break it down into two areas, excuse me, you can't see my fingers on this video, but the first area is we have to prove fault, okay, and the second area is we have to prove, as a result of that fault, what damages and injuries did the family, did the baby, did the mom, did the dad suffer.
So how does Maryland's statute of limitations affect these birth injury lawsuits?
Sure. Well, Maryland has what's called a statute of limitations for bringing a civil lawsuit against an at-fault party or parties, and there are different statutes of limitations depending on the type of case you're bringing. In medical malpractice cases, um, what I would say before I mention anything about actual limitations is, if you're listening to me, do not necessarily take this next statement as far as the statute of limitations and think that you know what you're doing and you can figure out what your limitations are in this case. So what I'm going to say first is, if you suspect you have a birth injury medical malpractice case, get in touch with an attorney who handles these cases and knows what they're doing, and they can look at that, because sometimes determining the statute of limitations on a particular case can be very difficult. So I can say the general law, but then I'm going to say, don't try to figure it out yourself, because there's years and years of common law that's been built up to determine what it actually is. Um, so it may take a legal expert to determine that. So the point is, make sure you get in to see an attorney as soon as you have any suspicions that something went wrong and you want things to be looked at. And even if you know what the statute of limitations is, which is generally 3 years from the date you knew or should have known when you discovered the malpractice, okay, but no longer than 5 years from the date that it actually occurred. So that's your general rule, but please do not take that and try to figure it out yourself, because there are exceptions. Um, there are reasons that the limitations may be shorter than you think it is, and
Mm.
there may be situations where limitations is longer than you think it is. For example, if you're a child, the limitations, or a minor, the limitations and may not begin to run until you're the child's 18. So then you may have your 3 years from age 18. It depends where the malpractice occurred. Is it in Maryland, or what if we have Maryland's bordered by, well, we have Delaware, we have Pennsylvania, we have West Virginia, and there are hospitals on the borders of Maryland and these surrounding states. So what if the malpractice, you think it happened in Maryland, but maybe it happened in Delaware, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, or Virginia, and they have different limitations.
Right.
There are so many crazy variations and variables which can affect the limitations. That's why I say, please don't try to figure it out on your own. Just act as quickly as you can. If you think it's too late, act anyway and see. You never know. Just make the call.
So what kind of compensation may be available for these families for a birth injury?
Oh my goodness. So before we get to compensation, we say, well, we have to ask, well, what is compensation for? So you don't just say, well, I had an accident, or there's an accident, or there was malpractice, and I should have X amount of dollars. You have to think about, well, what is it compensating you for? That's the purpose of compensation in law, is to compensate a person or persons or families for the harms and losses that they have suffered and will likely continue to suffer in the future. So in law, we call that damages. So that's that part 2. Remember, part 1 was proving fault, and part 2 is proving damages. So the type of compensation that's available is, first we have to prove who was at fault and what the person or persons did, whether that be doctors or hospitals, or whomever was at fault. And then we talk to the family, and sometimes we have experts help us determine these damages for which we're seeking compensation. So it all depends on the extent of the injury or injuries. So you have a child, let's say if it's a brain damage child, it depends on the severity of the brain damage. I mean, even a little brain damage is too much brain damage. And you may have seen friends or family or just strangers when you're out and about, and you might see a child in a wheelchair that they can't hold their head up, or they can't, or they obviously need care, 24-hour care. Like I said, there's all different levels. But many of these injuries are permanent, and that child may need care. If it's 24-hour nursing care for the rest of their lives. So we determine what is the life expectancy. This child's going to go from less than 1 year old into their toddler years, and into their tween years, and into their teens, and then they're going to become adults, and they're still, if a permanent injury, permanent means forever, and they may live until they could have a full life expectancy. They could live into their 70s or 80s, and we plan out. We need to know how much care they're going to need. What are they going to need? Are they going to need nursing care, modifications of their home, future medical care, specialized therapy, assistive devices, and all. It's millions and millions of dollars to raise a healthy child. Think about it, to raise a healthy child, to feed them, to clothe them, to house them, to put them through school. A healthy child from birth to age 18, there are estimates that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars and up. That's a healthy child to age 18. We're talking about a child who needs nursing and medical care and modifications not only through 18, but then as an adult, where are they going to live as an adult? What happens when their parents pass away? Who's going to take care of them? It's just mind-boggling. I mean, it's millions and tens of millions of dollars. It could be over $100 million. And that goes to help to pay for these things that are going to be needed as a result of somebody's mistakes. Somebody didn't pay close enough attention, or didn't do what they were supposed to do, or didn't know what they were doing. And those are economic losses that the child and the family is going to have into the future. And then you may have loss of earnings for the child. The child's never going to be able to work. That child would have been supporting themselves through their lifetime. The parents may have loss of income. It's just mind-boggling. But those are the things we look at for damages and for compensation.
Michael, thank you so much for your time and your information, sir.
Thank you very much, Evan. I appreciate the opportunity.
Appreciate you. And thank you all for listening to Green Light for Justice, saving the world one case at a time. Birth injuries can leave families feeling overwhelmed, but the right legal guidance can make all the difference. To connect with Michael and his team, visit greenlegalservices.com or perhaps call at 410-363-9414. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review and share this information for anyone that might find it helpful. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.